Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MeanGene Show here on iHeartRadio with your NBA playoff update. I tell you what, the first round of the NBA playoffs has been nothing but exciting. And I tell you what, I mean, there might be a few first round upsets now. Maybe not upsets, but how about at least games that might go farther than what we expected, meaning game sixes or game sevens. But anyway, I'm going to get you caught up on the action that's going to take place tonight, as well as the action that took place last night. Some of these series, I tell you, whoo-wee. Let's go ahead and just start with the action last night, because the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics, that is a series that me and Dustin Pfeiffer did on the MeanGene Show actually last week. And I think we both picked the Brooklyn Nets to win that series, where the Boston Celtics lead that series now 2-0. And the first game, we all know that the Nets should have won that game. I mean, it was a last-minute bucket there given up by the Celtics to give the Celtics that win, which I say, hey, they stole one at home. But game two was completely different. Last night, the Boston Celtics defeated the Nets 114-107 in a game that the Nets pretty much came out strong. I mean, Bruce Brown came out and gave the Nets a big lift. And I'm wondering, is because Brown's start really just allowed the other Nets players to sort of, okay, hey, this guy has the hot hand. Let's just go ahead and give him the ball. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant sort of just kind of, was getting a feel for the game. He just had an outstanding quarter. He finished the game with 23 points and 37 minutes of action, 8 rebounds and 4 assists. But it took a while before Kyrie Irving, number one, just did not have a good night. And we sort of expected that, okay? You're $50,000 lighter in the pocket. For some reason, you just want to respond to the fans. Now, he flipped the fans off in Boston, and that cost him $50,000. And just like the TNT broadcasters, Charles, Shaq, and Kenny and Ernie said, hey, you know what? You think they were on your ass in game one. Well, they're going to be even rougher in game two. And that was the case. Just like they said, hey, anytime, when Kyrie Irving has the ball in his hand, because that crowd is booing. Kyrie Irving had a dismal performance last night. 40 minutes of play, 10 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 block. And he was certainly not in that game. No matter how much Brown and Durant, tried to get them going. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for Brown, and if it wasn't for Seth Curry, and if it wasn't for Dragic, I don't know. I don't know if they would have even been in the game. The Celtics somehow would have just blew them out. They actually did take over the second half of that game, and it was just no contest. So the Boston Celtics now lead that series 2-0. And it returns to Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see if the Celtics and like they say, no one. The playoff really doesn't start. A series doesn't start until someone wins on the opponent's court, and that hasn't happened. But man, it was so close for the Nets in game one. But when you see how last night the Nets gave them everything they could, and the Celtics still found a way to finish strong, and that's how you have to finish games. You got the Defensive Player of the Year and Marcus Smart on this team. I mean, this Boston Celtics team and Udoka, the head coach in his first year, they are just really, really having one hell of a season. What else? I'm trying to look at some more stats here from that game on the Celtics side. Jaylen Brown, 22 points. And the scoring, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players in double figures. Now, if you're talking about spreading the ball around, playing team ball, Theis, 15 points, Al Horford, 16 points. You had Tatum with 19 points, Brown with 22 points, Marcus Smart, 12 points, Williams, 17 points, Pritchard, 10 points. That's what it's going to take, an all-out effort to win. So we're going to see how this is going to happen on the road. I got to think that, Kyrie Irving is going to be home, so you really won't hear that booing and none of that stuff. I think the crowd in Brooklyn is going to be a little bit hard on the Celtics because, hey, you beat our guys. So there's no way that that series shouldn't be tied. And then we're going to have ourselves a series. We should, by the time the Celtics return back to Boston, that series should be tied at 2 games apiece. So we're going to watch that. But great series so far. And the other action last night, it was the 76ers defeating the Raptors 104-101. They needed overtime to get it done. And here's another case for the Raptors, and I'm wrong about this one because I really thought, and this was, and the 76ers lead this series 3-0. So this series is almost over. I just don't know if the Sixers are going to sweep them now. I've talked to a lot of people, and they think, hey, this is going to be a sweep. And believe me, it's certainly looking that way. But, oh, my goodness, Joel Embiid hits the winning 3 in overtime. Now, when you got this guy doing it all, some people say he should be the MVP. 33 points last night, 13 rebounds, 2 assists. He's just doing it all. James Harden ended up fouling out of that game, but he did have 19 points. Harden fouled out in the fourth quarter. Maxey is being consistent, nowhere near that 36-point career high he had, but he put in 19, and Tobias Harris is the one guy who is just Joel Embiid is doing it, but man, for how long now? And it looks like they're going to win this series. I just don't see how the Raptors are going to rebound. They might get a win. I don't know. It's just not really looking good. But James Harden is going to have to play a little bit harder. Tobias Harris is that one guy that needs to play. Just Maxey, you might hit a miss there. Harden and Embiid, your main 2, but you got to have that one more player. And it seems like Tobias Harris is the one that everyone's counting on. Over on the Raptors side, Anobi did have 26 points. And, of course, Gary Trent Jr. had 24 points. Van Fleet, 12. Pascal Siakam, 12 points. And Achiuwa had 20 points for the Raptors. So the Raptors, it's just really kind of sad to see a team that down in the stretch of the regular season, they were one of the hottest teams over in the Eastern Conference. I think at one particular time they had won 7 in a row there, got themselves in a pretty good playoff position, to get that 6 seed. But, man, so far in the playoffs, they have been struggling and look like they are going to get an early exit. And believe me, and this, if you're a 76ers fan, this is what you want, because if they can sweep them, they're going to set for a while, because most of these other games are still have only played 2 and they're traveling. You got the Nets and the Celtics. That series is only 2 games have been played. The Bulls and the Bucks, only 2 games has been played. And the Miami Heat and the Hawks, only two games have been played. So if they can get that sweep, oh my goodness, they're going to set for a very, long time there and kind of rest up for their second round opponent. But also over in the East, and speaking of the Bulls and the Bucks, 2 teams that are only separated by less than 100 miles there in the Midwest. It was the Chicago Bulls defeating the Milwaukee Bucks 114-110 last night. And I have to say, an update here, and Chris Middleton is out with an MCL strain. He left the game, and oh my goodness, they are going to need him. He is a quality scorer. He has a big-time contract. He was a major contributor last year. Giannis cannot carry this team by himself. They're going to need another scorer. And Chris Middleton usually is the person that gives them that extra scoring. But, man, the Bulls last night, oh, my goodness. DeMar DeRozan, 41 points, and they tied that series. And, wow. I did not see that coming. I just didn't see where the Bulls had enough, looking at, some of the injuries. But, man, it just shows how important DeRozan is. And I know Laker fans came very close to trying to sign DeMar DeRozan, but that didn't happen. He had 41 points last night. Levine had 20. and Vujic had 24 points and a big win, big win for the Chicago Bulls, as that series now goes to the United Center in Chicago. Giannis, 33 points. Lopez, 25 points, and they're going to need that. Holiday, 15 points in Middleton before he got the injury. He had 18 points in 32 minutes to play. Wesley Matthews seems to be, just someone with an open shot there. He's available. He's there. He's going to really help them out. They're really going to need to replace Chris Middleton, who sometimes can, put up 25, 30 something points. Because right now what you're doing is you're going to allow that Chicago Bulls defense to key in on Giannis, and they figured, okay, well, we're just not going to let Giannis beat us. Somebody else is going to have to beat us. Going back to Chicago, man, they have an edge, so if he's going to miss some time, that's going to be a game changer. And then over in the West, so two key injuries that are happening here. You got Devin Booker out with the hamstring, so he's supposed to miss game 3 and 4 of that Pelican series, which is heading back to New Orleans for games 3 and 4. And man, who would have ever thought that the Pelicans would win a game against the red-hot Phoenix Suns? So if you don't have Devin Booker in the series, you don't have Chris Middleton in the series, so you got the two teams that made the NBA Finals, the two teams that are probably predicted to go back to the finals. That's going to change the entire complex of this NBA playoffs. Now, I'm not saying that the Pelicans are going to beat the Suns all of a sudden, but if you don't have, they could stretch this series to 6 or 7 games because of Devin Booker. Someone else is going to have to step up for the Phoenix Suns. So I know I'm getting off track a little bit, but I just, in mentioning these injuries here, Chris Middleton that's a big injury for the Milwaukee Bucks, especially with this series going back to Chicago. If Chicago wins games 3 and 4, then, they go back to Milwaukee up 3-1. That would be critical. But we're going to see. I mean, like I said, these series are just getting started here. Things are just getting really, really interesting there. And then, of course, now tonight, in tonight's action, you got the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. That series is not in Memphis now. It's going to move to Minnesota, Minneapolis. So that series is tied at 1 game apiece. You also have the Dallas Mavericks in Utah tonight. That series is tied at 1 game apiece. And then you have the Warriors. They're going to be in Mile High City, facing the Denver Nuggets, who are down 2-0 to the Golden State Warriors. So let's talk about the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves series, because I tell you what, that's your first game tonight. And man, the way I predicted a game 1 win by the T-Wolves. I figured, okay, this team is really solid. This team is built for, and that game is on TNT, by the way, tonight at 7:30 Eastern time. But I wasn't shocked at all that they beat them in game 1. But what I was shocked was how Memphis just came back and just, oh my goodness, Memphis beat them so bad in game 2 that it just, the game 1 just didn't matter anymore. It was a short-lived celebration, and it was a hell of a way to rebound. And I said, whoa, they beat them 124-96 in game 2. And Ja Morant, everyone contributed. Everyone just took their turns, just putting it on them. And the one thing that disturbs me with the Minnesota Timberwolves is sometimes the play of Karl Anthony Towns, who, he can get into foul trouble. And if he's not on the court, that's a problem for the Minnesota Timberwolves, because then you put a lot of pressure on Edwards, Beverly, and Russell, who Edwards had 20 points in that game in that loss the other night. And you just didn't get a lot of production, from the bench there in Minnesota. But Memphis, Ja Morant only had 23 points. Bain, 16 in that game. Jaren Jackson Jr., 16. Clark, the big man, 13. Tillman, the other big guy, 13. Zaire Williams, 13. Man, you're talking about spreading it around. That was the Memphis Grizzlies team that we saw throughout the regular season. Especially when Ja Morant was out and wasn't available to play. It was team ball. And that's what's going to happen. That's what it's going to take, really, for the Memphis Grizzlies to get past this series. So game 3 is going to be interesting because I really think it's important that the T-Wolves establish, they went and stole home court advantage. That's what you really want to do. So they have a great chance to go up 2-1 tonight and then leave Minnesota up 3-1. So we're going to see how Memphis plays on the road. So that's going to be a game tonight. I'm going to say Minnesota's going to win that game tonight. And the next game we have is the Dallas Mavericks at the Utah Jazz. That series is split. Now, the interesting thing there, we know Luka Doncic did not play, but in the last game between these two teams, they didn't need him because Jalen Brunson went out there and just lit it up. Jalen Brunson had his best game as a professional and really lifted the Dallas Mavericks over the Utah Jazz. He scored 41 points. 41 seemed to be the number right in these playoffs. 41 points, and the Mavs made 22 threes in that game. And, man, when you're just shooting the ball and making your shots like that, that's going to be a win every time. Now, Donovan Mitchell did show up, Bogdanovich did show up, and Jordan Clarkson did show up for the Utah Jazz. But, and they didn't have a bad game. But like I said, when the Mavericks are making those kind of shots, Bronson had 41, Kleber 25 points, Dinwiddie 17, and Dinwiddie is yet to really go off in these playoffs. Now, he's capable, too, of firing it up. They will not have Luka Doncic again tonight, but they will be in Utah, and the Jazz always seems to play better at home, so that's going to be interesting. I would say that the Jazz will win tonight in Utah against the Mavericks. I think Dinwiddie is going to have a good game, but I just think the Jazz know what's at stake. And just like me and Dustin Pfeiffer said on our show we did last week, the Jazz and the Nuggets are just two of those teams that for some reason there's always an obstacle in their way. Something is always in their way to get to prevent them from just getting to even the conference finals. So I got to think that the Denver Nuggets team would be completely different. We're going to talk about them here in a little bit if they had Murray. But the Jazz, Jazz has everybody. One of the players that they don't have is Ingles, who is a big spark off the bench there. But for the most part, they have everything they need, and they finished fifth in the Western Conference. Remember last year they finished first and didn't. And got the early exit. So I think the Jazz are going to go in there and take care of business tonight. But, man, keep your eye on Jalen Brunson again and Spencer Dinwiddie. I think those two are going to take turns there. No Luka Doncic. He's out with the calf injury. Tim Hardaway, of course, is out with the foot. So, but the Mavericks are hanging in there. And man, if they get a win tonight, whoo, it would be interesting. And, Magic Johnson said to watch out for the Dallas Mavericks. Now, I remember when he said that Luka Doncic wasn't injured at the time, but it is a different team with Luka Doncic not in there. Someone has to step up, and you're just not going to get that kind of production from Jalen Brunson every night. Now, he's a hard player and hard-working player. And Spencer Dinwiddie, man, good thing they acquired him in that trade deadline because they're going to need him. But, those two players can definitely keep them in a game. Jason Kidd's doing a hell of a job, by the way, of coaching the Dallas Mavericks. The team responds well to him. And look, they're in the playoffs. But I think tonight they're going to have their hands full. The home cooking, as they call it. I think that crowd tonight is definitely going to be a Utah Jazz crowd, and they should, by the end of the night, be leading that series 2-1. to 1. All right, and then the next game tonight, the last game tonight, Golden State Warriors, Denver Nuggets. Golden State lead that series 2-0 because the Nuggets cannot figure out what to do with Jordan Poole. And really no one can figure out what to do with Jordan Poole. Just when you thought that, okay, well, we know we got to defend Curry. We know we got to defend Thompson. But who the hell is Jordan Poole? And that's that question that the Nuggets are asking because, man, he has dropped some major buckets on them in the last couple of games there. And you know what? You got to figure it out. You got to figure it out quick because the series is going to be over if you don't. The Joker, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't take much to get under his skin, And I think he's just one of those players that plays with a lot of emotion, but you can get to him. Like in that game the other night. So Curry did contribute a whole lot. Curry had 34 points, and this was off the bench, remember? Okay, Curry, because Curry's been injured, but he had 34 points off the bench that night in that one, what was it, a 126, I believe, 126-106 win over Denver the other night. But this Jordan Poole guy, oh my goodness, the Warriors are going to have a fun time trying to divvy up, big money to these players. They got so many great players over there in Golden State. You got Looney, you got Wiggins, you got Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole, by the way, had 29 points in that game that night. Wiggins had 13. Curry had 34. And Thompson had 21. So it's man, the Golden State Warriors are back. And you remember, they still have Wiseman, who is their center, who people are saying he might come back. He's out because of a right knee injury. But there's a chance as this series or the playoffs go deeper, we might see him. We just might see Wiseman. But anyway, the Golden State Warriors, my goodness, they are back. They are back. Steve Kerr's a hell of a coach. Come on. I mean, anytime you've had the opportunity to work under Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich, how many championships between those two coaches? 16, 17? NBA championships between Popovich and Phil Jackson. Steve Kerr was there for a lot of them. I can guarantee you that much. The ones in Chicago and the ones with the Spurs. So a lot of people don't think Steve Kerr is a great coach. I beg to differ. I think the man knows exactly what he's doing. And he's got the championship rings to show for it. And he's got the talent. And who's ever, picking and choosing their players, man, Jordan Poole is a steal. I don't know who else had their eyes on him and failed to take him in the draft. But, man, this guy is good. And, Jordan Poole, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. I just really think, when it's all said and done, I don't know how they're going to keep Steph Curry. I think they're going to probably move Jordan Poole into the starting lineup with Steph Curry. Klay Thompson might end up being out of there. They just don't have that kind of money to afford to pay all those big-time players that turn out to be so good. Because the one thing about drafting all these rookies, playing these rookies, their contracts are gonna end at the same time, and you're gonna have to make some decisions. And I didn't even mention, so they drafted Moody from Arkansas. They have him. They got Kuminga. They drafted him. So they got Poole. I mean, it's gonna be tough, And if any team can make trades with people, the Golden State Warriors, they are back. They have the pieces that they can give to anybody and bring in a big piece. And, not to mention Wiseman. They have the most talented roster and probably the deepest talented roster in all of basketball in the NBA. So it's going to be interesting now. So let's talk about the Denver Nuggets. Okay, I know Nuggets fans are getting impatient with me here. So the Joker, 26 points in that loss the other night. Will Barton, 12. Morris, 12. They're just not getting a lot of help. The Joker cannot win these games on his own. The one player that I thought would really help them is he's just not doing anything. And we're talking about Aaron Gordon. Gordon, and this is the one I get mixed up with Zach LaVine, but Gordon had 7 points the other night in that loss to Golden State. They really are going to need him. Now, one thing Malone does with his players in Denver is he spreads out the minutes. Rarely are you going to see no one played over 30 minutes. Okay, Will Barton right at 30. The Joker averaged 28 minutes. Morris had 25 minutes. Green, 22. Gordon, 25. Forbes, 24. Austin Rivers, 20. So DeMarcus Cousins, 12 minutes, and he's getting the furious minutes. But they don't wear out their players. And I don't know, sometimes you just got to let them stay in there and grind, coach, because everybody else is putting in time. Klay Thompson, 33 minutes, and Jordan Poole, 33 minutes. Some of these other teams, man, they're having over in the East, those guys are playing, not counting overtime, of course, but these guys are playing well close to 40 minutes a game. And you have to do that. You have to really work these players because that's what it's going to take. So we're going to see what Denver's going to do tonight. I think Denver will lose tonight. Yes, I'm sorry. I think the Warriors are going to go up 3-0. I just haven't seen anything in 2 games to where it gives me any confidence because I think the Warriors defensively, they will find a way to hold down the Joker, make somebody else on that Nuggets team beat you. And who is that going to be? I mean, Barton is capable of it, of course. Who else? Morris can knock down big shots, at times. Aaron Gordon really needs to step it up. This guy he really needs to step it up. He struggles. He continues to struggle. And, man, I thought he was going to be that one player, especially after Murray went down when they acquired him, that was really – and I think all of the folks in Denver, Nuggets fans, you would have to agree with me. You had very high expectations of Aaron Gordon. I know you did because I did. But I tell you what, if no one steps up tonight, the Golden State Warriors are going to win Game 3, and they probably, I wouldn't say sweep the series, but they're going to win the series. And there we go. What is something that gets in the way of the Nuggets and the Jazz every year? They're in there. They're going to make the playoffs. Believe me, they're never going to be play-in tournament type basketball programs. They got too much talent to be play-in teams, but they will not get out of the first or second rounds. And I don't know what it is. And maybe it's because of the matchups, because the West is so good. It's just a matchup. So that's your last game that's going to take place tonight in the NBA playoffs. So, and just sort of looking ahead tomorrow, because I know there's a series that I really didn't get a chance to talk about. I want to talk about these two because they will play tomorrow night, and that's going to be the Miami Heat and Atlanta Hawks. That series travels to the ATL, where the Heat leads that series 2-0. Trae Young is good enough to get a win by himself, and I don't think the Heat is going to sweep the Hawks, because the Hawks really gave them a hard time last week. I mean, in the last game they played, I'm sorry. But, they came up short. But I do think that Trae Young and the Hawks will find a way to get, to at least get that opening win at home in front of the crowd. But it was a 115-105 win the other night when they played, and they just couldn't stop Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler had a playoff career high 45 points. He single-handedly defeated the Atlanta Hawks. There was nothing that Jimmy Butler couldn't do. And I tell you what, when he walked off the floor the other night, hey, my job is done here, fellas. This is it. So say what you will or what you want about Jimmy Butler. Sometimes he can, hey, how far has the Miami Heat come from the incident between Butler and Udonis Haslem and Coach Eric Spoelstra. You remember that ugly incident that happened, right before the end of the regular season, where it looked like the Miami Heat was just falling apart there. And then I think they even dropped out of first place for maybe a game or two. The Celtics kind of took first place for a game or two. And then all of a sudden they get right back there. And no one's talking about that now in Miami. That is like, okay, winning cures everything. And when Jimmy Buckets, as they call him, when he puts up 45 points, man, you just shut up. There's nothing else that can be said. Now, John Collins did play the other night. That did help a little bit. Trae Young is playing 40 minutes. He played 40 minutes in that loss the other night. But Collins did help a little bit. Gallinari, man, he struggled. Only had 2 points in game 2. And, but Bogdanovich really carried them in that game. And, it just really looked like they was going to win. I thought they was going to steal a game in Miami, and it really looked that way because Bogdanovich wasn't missing anything. But they're in Atlanta tomorrow night for game 3 of that series. So that's going to happen tomorrow night. And then the other series that we haven't really talked about a lot, and I haven't talked about so far on this show, is the Phoenix Suns and the Pelicans. So I want to talk about that because, man, Willie Green, and it just slipped my mind that Willie Green was an assistant coach for the Phoenix Suns and Monty Williams. So he is the best scout for the New Orleans Pelicans. So if you want to know why the Pelicans are beating the Phoenix Suns, well, Willie Green is one of the reasons because he just was an assistant coach for that Phoenix Suns team. He knows everything about that team, but yet at the same time, he's got to coach his players, and they got to listen to him and find a way to beat the team. Now, it helps when Devin Booker is not on the court, and Devin Booker is out with a hamstring. That, my friends, is huge. No Devin Booker, that is huge. The Pelicans won Game 2 of that series, 125-114. And now we're looking at, okay, you don't have Devin Booker, who's one of your younger stars on that team. Who else on that Phoenix Suns team is going to step up? Chris Paul cannot give as much effort as he once did. Chris Paul is an old guy. And we all know the history with Chris Paul in the playoffs. He's just won anything away from an injury. Okay, so who's going to step up? Is it going to be Bridges? Is it going to be Crowder? Is it going to be Ayton? Is it going to be Cam Johnson? Cameron Payne? Who's going to step up there? Because someone has to step up and account for Devin Booker, who can drop 40 on you. So someone's going to really have to step up. This is not going to cause the Phoenix Suns to lose this series between the New Orleans Pelicans because of Booker's injury, but it might force it to go Game 7. And it's going to, and like I said, Chris Paul, he's the one guy that, his stepping it up means that, okay, he's going to get injured because Chris Paul will get hurt. Something's going to happen, a fingernail, something could happen. It's just Chris Paul. And I was telling people this the other day, back in the day, there were some great NBA players that never won a championship. And Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, Patrick Ewing, great players. Reggie Miller, great players that never won an NBA championship. And in today's generation, Chris Paul, it might just be that player. Last year, the media, everybody gave the Phoenix Suns that championship. The entire playoffs turned out to be the Chris Paul show, the Chris Paul championship tour. And it just didn't happen because they didn't have an answer for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And now this happens, injuries. Man, like I said, you got injuries to Milwaukee and Chris Middleton. You got injuries to Devin Booker to the Phoenix Suns. Both teams made the finals last year, and these are just not scrub players. These are good players that are out. So, Devin Booker come back from that hamstring injury, and but man, this first round to go 7 or 6 games with the Pelicans, totally unexpected. But then, and this coach, Willie Green, man, he knows this team. He knows their strengths, the weaknesses. And it's just what a hell of a first round matchup to go up against a coach that knows you better than anybody. He is the best scout right now. But the Suns are in somewhat trouble because, like I said, Chris Paul is not going to be that one. He's going to have some big games here. He might have to divvy up a lot of assists, and he's going to have to make other players play in order for them to get out of this series, though. But having said that, I wouldn't. They will win. They play tomorrow night. They're going there and get game. I think the Pelicans will come out very strong in game 3 at home. But I do think the Suns, will take home court advantage back. And I think this series, might go 6 or 5 or 6, unexpectedly or unnecessarily. But I just think it's gonna go that way. But man, the Suns are a 1.5 point favorite to win, and rightfully so, because I think they can rebound. I think they can make the adjustments, and so that's it. I mean, that's where we stand. So now me and Dustin Pfeiffer, we did say we would come back and do our second round show. We certainly didn't. I didn't see that the who is it? The 76ers would be that far ahead in their series. I just really thought Toronto would sort of show up and maybe they win one game to extend the series a little bit, but for the most part it's all over. And I'm still watching how the 76ers, how the James Harden situation is going there. Oh, and with the Brooklyn Nets, all reports are indicating that Ben Simmons is likely going to play in game 4. So it's going to be interesting to see how they implement him in there. And it's going to be interesting. And it could be a distraction. It could cost them. First of all, they're going to have to see, well, they may not have a choice but to put him in there for game 4 if they lose game 3. Then you got to put damn near anybody in there to keep from getting swept by the Boston Celtics. But man, I tell you what, it's going to be one hell of an offseason in Brooklyn if the Nets do not get to the second round, because some folks are making excuses. Some folks are saying, well, not this year, maybe next year. Well, you got to remember how close they came last year to beating the Milwaukee Bucks. I was at game 4 of that series between the Bucks and the Nets. And of course, you all remember how close, Kevin Durant came to defeating the Milwaukee Bucks last year. And that was without a lot of help. So I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting. With Kyrie, his personal choices, his life, style is what, it is what it is. And, for some reason, the fans right now seems to be his biggest obstacles, of course. And things just really played out for the Celtics and, a team that he used to play for. But man, I just thought that was a very lame excuse for him to even respond to the fans at a press conference. I mean, come on, are you serious? You already know how that goes. So, and believe it or not, you go down 3-0 to the Boston Celtics, your own fans are going to boo you. Then what? And they have booed them. Those Brooklyn fans have booed them. Remember, Kevin Durant in the regular season, he went off on the fans in Brooklyn. So I don't know. The Brooklyn Nets are very interesting. And then it comes into question Steve Nash. Is Steve Nash ready for prime time? Well, so far he and this is his second opportunity to get out of the first round. And let's see, will Ben Simmons save his career? Will Ben Simmons be able to give them that spark? But I tell you what, they would need to win Game 3. They have to have this series tied before they return to Boston, because if they don't, and I picked them to win, and we haven't made our predictions for the second round yet, but I definitely had I almost called them New Jersey, the Brooklyn Nets getting out of the first round, but it's looking mighty close, and I don't know, it may not happen. So we're gonna see. So enjoy the games tonight, and of course the games tomorrow. And I get Dustin Pfeiffer back. We'll come back and we'll get you through the second round with our predictions and analysis of what's going to happen in the second round, because we took the chicken way out, right? We couldn't pick a winner all the way through the playoffs because it's just impossible to do. We're doing this round by round, okay? But anyway, enjoy your Thursday here. It is Thursday, right? Yes. Enjoy your Thursday here. And you have been listening to the MeanGene Show right here on iHeartRadio, powered by Podbean.